The most important force that is driving this decoupling is not actually Donald Trump. He saw an opportunity and he grabbed it, and he's using it for his political purposes. But the primary driver is China's divergence from the same reform and opening strategy and policy focus that it had in the past, mostly because it got to the stage where it was so difficult to implement the next round of those kinds of marketization reforms, reducing the capital account barrier, for example, making the currency truly global. These things were attempted and they failed extraordinarily. And so big leadership has had to fall back on the sort of alternative to marketization. In fact, the reform plan that Dr. Fan mentioned a second ago, the May 18th guidelines on perfecting reform, basically, are almost a perfect acknowledgement that nothing has been achieved in reform in the past 8 years, because it's almost exactly the same set of ideas and urgent recommendations for reform that we had seen in November 2013 when Xi Jinping first put an economic manifesto on the table. While I think this decoupling is already a reality, and so the question of inevitability is not even a question any longer, there are still huge questions about the extent to which we will continue to see a broadening decoupling across all these different economic dimensions. While it's definitely not just an American phenomena, and in some ways other countries have gone further already, Japanese already subsidizing Japanese companies to leave China and come back to Japan or go to third countries in ASEAN, for example. European Union is way ahead of the United States in terms of changing its competition policy rules to permit domestic firms to collude with each other against Chinese state-owned enterprises, for example. The United States hasn't gotten close to that level of competition policy conversation yet. But in all of these cases in the OECD, this decoupling will be partial. It will not be comprehensive. It will not be a complete kind of Cold War containment mentality. It will ultimately be focused on real issues of national security, of supply chain vulnerabilities that you're not willing to live with again in Italy if the next time a virus strikes. I'm not willing to live with here in New York. And so this is not even a matter of whether we're friends or not. It's just that in these kinds of crises, it turns out you have to have more domestic capacity than is ideal from a purely economic business perspective. And so there's going to be a lot of changes that are not sort of a systemic rivalry issues, as you put it in Europe, or strategic competition, as we say in the United States. It's complicated.